Welcome back to the channel. So last time we finished up this center column here and got the bearing holder mounted. So today we're going to start on this cylinder here and the balance disc at the same time. I've got this chunk of cast iron here. To make both of them out of. It's long enough and big enough that first thing we're going to do is turn it down to size for this balance disc, and then we will go ahead and drill and ream, and I will go ahead and drill and ream through the whole piece because this cylinder here gets bored out to a larger size. So go ahead and drill and ream this, turn this down to size, and then cut this off. We'll face it off on the end first and then cut it off. And then we'll set it aside, and then we'll finish the drilling the holes and the hole for the set screw later. So once that's done, then we can start turning this down. So we'll get all this bored out in the middle, get this section turned down here in the middle, and then we'll have to do the same thing as we did on the center column. We'll set it up to mill these grooves here, and then one of the last things that happens is it starts out as a full circle, but then we'll actually machine off part of the side here and make a flat, and then that flat will butt up against this center column here. And then last thing we'll need to do is transfer these three holes that we've got here, and then we'll drill and tap this from the bottom to mount it there. But we'll go ahead and get it set up in the lathe and get it faced off and start drilling it. Okay, this is where we're at so far. So I turned this, first thing I did was cut the end off that we're going to use for that balance disc. I drilled and reamed it, then put that aside for now. Then we turned this down to this size here, and then I drilled it and then cut it with the boring bar, and I got this to size here in the middle. And then in order to hold it, because there's only 1/4 of an inch back here, so I made up this little simple arbor. It's a tight fit there. I left it a little bit short and then made a button to go on the end here, and then drill and tap that. So we can just screw that on there, and this will serve a couple of purposes. So I could hold this in the chuck to go ahead and machine out this section here in the middle. So I did most of this with a button tool, and then we put a chamfer here on the edge, and then rounded off this with a form tool, cleaned it up a little bit with some sandpaper. So this will also allow us to do like we did on this center column to put the flutes in. Then I can put this in a 5C collet and the indexer, so then we can machine these flutes, and then I can index it and machine the flute and index it around. So we got to put 10 flutes in there, and then we've also got to machine off a flat section here. So this gets machined off flat almost down to this radius, and that's where it butts up against that center column. So we can also use it in the 5C indexer, and we can index it around, and we can machine this off, machine this flat off. So that'll be the next step, is to get these flutes in here and get this machined off. And then once that's done, then we can put it onto our mainframe and transfer our, and drill and tap our 3 holes from the bottom. But before we do that, while I'm set up to machine this section off here, we're going to go ahead and get this other column up to the same stage, because it also gets flutes machined into it, and it actually gets a window machined out in the sides here. So starting with the same, this one's a little bit longer, it's 2 inches long, and this one was 1.5 inches. So it'll use this entire piece that's a little bit longer than 2 inches. So we'll get it faced off on the end, and then go ahead and get it drilled out, and then it gets counterbored here from the end. So we'll drill it from this side, counterbore it, get it turned down to this main size here, and then same thing, I made a arbor here. So this is a lot smaller size. This is 312. Made this arbor that'll go into here. So we can do the same thing. We can hold it in the chuck, and then we can get it down, machined down to this shape here. And then same thing, it'll mount in the 5C collet indexer, so we can put these grooves in here, and then we can also machine out these reliefs on the side. So we'll get this piece up to the same stage as this, and then we'll set up, and then we'll do all the flutes after that. Okay, so we got the second cylinder here up to the same stage as the first cylinder. So I faced off both ends, drilled it, ringed it, and then counterboarded here to fit over top of our bushing, and then flipped it over, turned this section down to the largest diameter here, and it doesn't give exact dimensions on these, it just says to turn it to suit, so that's what I come up with. So we turned this down, and then I used the button tool to turn down this, so we get a nice radius here, and then a nice radius here. Work this section down in between, and then rounded this off here on the end, counterboard it, put a chamfer on the end of it there, and that worked real good using the arbor to hold it so that you can get to all of it. And then I took just a 1/4-20 bolt here with a washer on it, and then I counterbored it there so I could put the live center in there. So we have this held in a 3-jaw chuck, and then the live center here, because this aluminum piece is pretty thin, so I was afraid it might flex or could possibly break off, because there's some pretty high tool pressures here. So we did do a live support from the tailstock on this one. So I'll show you here where it goes once we get it finished up. So this one will go on here, and then this cylinder will go on here. So they're both ready for the next step now. We'll mount them back up in the arbors, and then put them in the 5C, call it, spin indexer, and then we'll machine the flutes. So this one will get 2 flutes machined into it. And then this is going to be a sacrificial arbor. So it gets a window machined out of it on both sides here. So we'll take a ball end mill and run it through here and here, and then machine this out in the middle. So it'll actually open up to this inside bore, be a window here on each side, and then a flute on the other 2 sides. Then we'll machine our flat off here, and then that flat butts up against this first column that we made here. But this is a good place to stop, so we'll get that set up next time and get the flutes and everything and the flats, and then we'll get these mounted. We'll transfer these holes from here and then get these 2 columns mounted, and then that'll finish those up, and then we'll start on that next time. Thanks for watching.